Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are doing the 2000 subscriber Q&A. So I have all the questions in front of me and we're going to go through them one by one. There are a few slightly repeated questions, or questions which are kind of similar, but I'm going to, not modify them, but answer them in a different way so they make a bit more sense. Before I get started though, I would just like to say once again thank you for the 2,000 subscribers, and it seems like this channel is growing pretty well, to be honest, and that makes me happy. Not just because it's more views and everything, but mainly down to the fact that there's a lot more comments and more interesting opinions. Also, some people correcting me on things that I get wrong, which I think is actually much more important for me personally. Also, I finally finished the Battle Cries book, which is written by James Inglis, and it's basically the speeches and stuff like that of very famous people through history, and I really recommend it. Even if you just want to focus on World War II and World War I, there is many pages of it where you are able to read speeches from all sides and see where they're kind of coming from. I will also be doing this live, so if there's any weird noises or anything, well, you know how it is. But anyway, let's get into this. So Visky252 asks, when did you start playing War Thunder and how did you get into it? So to answer the how or when did I start playing, I actually had to go back to the War Thunder website. If you didn't know, if you know the player of a name, you can actually search it on the War Thunder website under the Communities tab, and it will tell you some general information about them. So, the account I use for all the videos, the Boom Boom Toon one, the registration date is the 10th of the 7th, 2013. So that's the 10th of August 2013. So I'm I'm basically a month away from my 4-year anniversary of playing this game. So we're at about 3 years, 11 months, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Especially, I was around in the game when they still had the old rank system. That people still go on about to this day, which is kind of amazing to me. Sorry, I've got a bit of stuff in my throat. And how did I get into it? Well, that's a very interesting question, but I just want to say, before moving on, you can also, if you don't want to do search players through the War Thunder website, you can also do it on Thunderskill. On Thunderskill, it'll give some general information. So for me, it has my nickname, generally how good of a player I am, what I prefer, and then when I started playing and stuff like that. And profiles in Russian and English, if you want to. So yeah, that's two ways of checking, how long somebody has played and their statistics. How did I get into it? This is gonna be interesting. How this works. So 4 years ago, obviously, I had a mate at university, and still, he's still around. We still have a chat, and we used to play Medieval 2 Total War together and Empire Total War. And he knew that I was interested in World War II and World War II games because we used to play the Men of War, which was, the first Men of War, the one which just got a HD remake. And he said, have you had a look at World of Tanks? Because he'd seen a bunch of adverts on it, I'd seen a bunch of adverts on it as well, and, we gave it a go together. I think I got to either rank 4 or 5 of the British tree, and started coming up against stuff which, without the premium ammunition, which at that point you could only use gold to get, there was no way I could pen a lot of the tanks I was facing, and to be quite honest, I thought it was quite unfair at the time. So I kind of gave it up. But also, I really enjoyed some of the videos made by a guy called Sir Sircon. Now, Sir Sircon is a main Twitch streamer, but also did YouTube videos. And he still does. You can actually have a look at his channel. It's really fun to watch. He now does that new Battlegrounds game, and it's still World of Tanks. And even though I haven't played World of Tanks for maybe 4 years now, I still really enjoy his videos on World of Tanks. He's an amazing player. Easily in the top 5%, even maybe top 2% of players in the world. And it's just amazing to watch. I would love him to do like a series on his thought processes about, you know, what he's looking for and stuff like that. I know he talks about it every so often in his videos and stuff, but I think that would be really interesting, at least for me personally. From his channel, he talked about War Thunder a little bit, but also there was a guy called Jingles. Now you'll all know the mighty Jingles, or Bohemian Eagle, from the old days, and I started watching his World of Tanks content as well. And then I realised he had some War Thunder videos. I first of all looked at the World of Warplane stuff, and that looked absolutely trash. So yeah, I was not going to touch that with a beanpole. And then I believe it was the video which was about the B-17 that he had done. It was either that one or one which was very similar, basically on one certain aircraft, and then he would talk about it, you know, the historical parts of it, and then he would show it in game and stuff. So I booted up War Thunder, and I really enjoyed it. Simple as. And from then on, I've played. That's really about it. That's how I got into it. How did I get into the content side of it? There's two other guys which on YouTube which were really interesting for me. One I found through the mighty Jingles, and it was Ram JB. I believe it's Ram JB. I don't think he's made any War Thunder content in a while. I believe he kind of just gave up on it and went on to other games. But his videos were very much about the maneuvers that you can take, how to play the game basically, and a lot of maneuvers that I learned from him. And I believe he didn't like the direction that War Thunder was going in, so he decided to stop playing it. And I can completely understand that. If anybody, you know, feels like that, that's completely fine. But then I found Bowtime, and even though I didn't particularly like their content, I still think it's interesting. I really enjoy watching their podcast stuff, but the short form stuff doesn't really interest me that much. And from them, I found a guy called Crouching Walrus, who went into the minutiae of War Thunder, testing aircraft against each other, looking at historical performances, how they should stack up, certain, you know, videos based around how to fly certain aircraft, what to do in certain situations, and I find that stuff absolutely just interesting as hell, for me personally. And unfortunately, he stopped making videos as well. So, yeah, I'm still waiting for that, or maybe I just haven't found them, but I'm looking for another YouTuber who goes into that minutiae and the detail, which I think is really important when looking like at a game like this. For me personally, I much prefer talking about the game and the mechanics in the game instead of trying to compare it to real life, but I still think it's interesting. So that's basically how I got into it. A bit convoluted, but you know how it is. Let's get on to the next one. Alex Arbo, what is the story behind your YouTube profile picture, and keep up the awesome work? Well, thank you. And the profile picture, I used to have a bear with a top hat and a monocle and stuff, you know, the idea of the European Canadian, even though I was British. And from there, I was like, you know what, maybe I should just have my own thing. And my wife is an artist. Not by trade. She does other stuff by trade, but in her free time, she does a bunch of drawings, and they're absolutely amazing. She specializes in anatomy, so she really enjoys drawing skulls and vertebrae and stuff like that. And it's absolutely amazing. to me when I watch her draw and stuff. I've said, you know, maybe you should do videos on it. You know, you see those like time-lapse ones that people do? Yeah. So I asked her to do a bunch of doodles, because I didn't want something which would take hours and hours of her time, because obviously time is precious. And she came up with that little thing. And, you know, I mean, I don't look that different to to the thing, but I like this little cartoony style. And maybe in the future, the idea would be for either Christmas or her birthday or, you know, our anniversary, getting her like a graphics tablet or whatever you call it, and helping, because she wants to do that too. She wants to get into the whole Photoshop stuff. So maybe that's what we do. We get one of them and maybe she can create something else. But for the time being, I really like it. If you have any suggestions of people I should contact and stuff for like channel art and things, please let me know. Just to see, you know, what they offer and things. But right now, I like it. It's a nice little personal touch for me, personally, because obviously it's made by my wife, and, well, she's very precious to me. Moving on, we have Veg Tam the Wanderer. And he says, that's a great name. Would you rather have in real life A. a Kettenkrad, or B. a Vesper 150 TAP? So if you don't know what a Kettenkrad is, the best way to describe it is, if you've watched Saving Private Ryan, the Kettenkrad is like the little motorcycle, but instead of the back wheels, instead of the back wheel, it is tracks with a little like compartment where people can sit and stuff. In one of the ending scenes of Saving Private Ryan, where they are trying to defend the town, a scout goes out on the Kettenkrad to try and spot the enemy before they come in. So that is the Kettenkrad. When we talk about the Vesper, the Vesper is the Vesper 150 TAP is the one you've probably seen bandied around quite a lot of times. It's the one which is actually attached to the recoilless rifle, the M20 75mm, the American recoilless rifle. And I can't see that being incredibly comfy to sit on. And also the Kettenkrad, I could probably, you know, have somebody along with me and have a bit of fun with it. So probably that. The Vesper 150 is definitely an interesting design though. I mean, I still can't believe that was even a thought. And the fact that it was going to be used for paratroopers is even more ridiculous. 1950s! They thought this was a good idea in the 1950s. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. But yeah, anyway, the Kettenkrad. Let's just expand this one, since it's incredibly small. What do you think about the state of the M4A3E8 in War Thunder? I've played hundreds of matches in it, but I've only been top tier in it 5 times. The M4A38 is in a very interesting position in War Thunder, and the reason for this is basically because of the Germans. I know this sounds really odd, but in the M4A38, it sits at 5.3, I believe. Yeah, it sits at 5.3. It's the HVSS version of the 76, and because it sits at 5.3, what used to happen a lot of the time is that a lot of German players would play Tigers and Panthers, and the Panthers and Tigers are at 5.7, and you're at 5.3, and the Americans didn't have a vehicle at 5.7. They had the Pershing, which was higher, the T-25 didn't exist, and the 76 Jumbo was the same BR as the Pershing, I believe. So what used to happen was you'd get up-tiered constantly because of that. Because it's at 5.3 now, that basically means that you're still going to run into Tigers and stuff. If this machine ever runs into a bunch of 4.3 stuff, it actually does really well. But personally, I think the Easy 8 is still combat effective against Tigers and Panthers. now that people have figured out where to shoot Tigers and Panthers, it's not too bad. If it faces the Russians, I mean, you've got the T-34-85s. I'd probably say the T-34-85 is generally better than the EZ-8. The T-34-85 is the only thing they've really got worse than the HVSS, is the HVSS actually has gun depression, where the 85s kind of struggle with that. But I'd still take an 85 over it just because it's faster. The reload is probably about the same, and also the gun on the 85 is just so good, it does so much damage. But generally, I think it's the EZ-8's in an okay position. If you lowered it, you'd have to lower the rest of the Shermans, or at least the 76 variants, and I think they're okay. The gun is good at 5.3. If it gets up to 6.3, well, you're still not in the 6.7 bracket, which would cause it a lot of issues. If it gets up tiered against Tiger 2Ps, you can still do pretty well. Against Tiger 2Ps, it's, you know, everyone knows where to shoot them now, where the gunner is, so, yeah, I mean, it's in an okay spot. Its armor isn't very good, but then again, the only Sherman which I think has good armor is the first Jumbo, and also the first Sherman, the M4, and maybe the M4A1. But yeah, relying on your armor in the EZ-8 is probably not the best thing. We'll have to see what pans out, especially when we get the Italians in game. Against the Japanese, the 76 dominates, but then again, against the Japanese, I think the whole American tree dominates, to be quite honest. Moving on, we have Epic Blitzkrieg 87. Would you rather kill yourself or commit suicide? And I'll go on to the next one. Can you mimic accents like Russian in English? I can actually mimic some accents. I'm gonna save them for videos though, because I have some I have some plans, you know, around that. One of them which I'm not sure I'm going to do. I was going to do 3 twins. This would be kind of a fiction thing, but you'd have three twins. One grows up in America, one grows up in Britain, and one grows up in Russia. And they're all the same, so they all have very similar voices, but obviously they have their regional accents. And then what happens is they fight through the wars, you follow their stories and everything, and they all meet together in Berlin. And they're really confused because obviously they look exactly the same, they kind of sound the same. And yeah, it's kind of like, you know, separated at birth, united in battle. But yeah, we'll play with that. The kill yourself or commit suicide thing. I'd probably kill myself. I think it sounds better, just as a general sentence. But to expand on it a bit more, I know that obviously you don't want it's not really there to expand a bit more, but a little tidbit what I think is interesting. I have this recurring dream where I sit on the edge of a waterfall, and people in my life come up to me and kind of sit next to me on this waterfall, and we have a conversation, and when it's done, you know, they just fall into the waterfall, and then the next person comes along, and then when it's time for me to wake up, I push myself off, and I wake up when I hit the water. And I've always really liked that dream, and it's come less and less with age. But yeah, and it's an interesting little tidbit. What do you think is... oh, sorry. This is from Y, Spotter, and Aviator. What do you think is better? A Yak 9 or a Hurricane Mark II/Trop? FYI, I wanted to know from your opinion because the Yak has 120mm and 12mm, and the Hurricane has 10 7.7mm. So, I always look at these questions in a realistic point of view, just like the EZ-8 one. So that's my frame of reference, just in case anyone's confused. For me personally, if we're going from a completely pragmatic sense and we have 2 equal pilots in each of the aircraft, I would say that the Yak 9 is going to outperform the Hurricane. It climbs better, it has a more powerful engine, and if the Yak 9 is flown well, then the Hurricane should never even touch it. Especially if the, you know, on equal footing, the Yak should always be higher than it, it should perform better at higher levels, so the Hurricane shouldn't be able to touch the thing at all. So, yeah, from that point of view. From my personal point of view, I really enjoy flying the Hurricane Mark II Trop. I have an amazing record in the Hurricane Mark II Trop and all of the Hurricanes, and I would, any day of the week, take on 10 Yak 9s in 10 Hurricane Mark II Trops. I'm pretty sure I could, you know, if I had my squad behind me, we could absolutely destroy them. But that's from a personal point of view. But if we're looking at it more general, then I think the Yak 9 has the edge, just because of the stopping power of the gun, and no real need to worry about convergence since everything's in the nose. Then we have 2 questions along the same line, so I'm going to do them both at the same time. We have Corporal Odin, who says, "For how long have you been playing War Thunder now?" And then we have Finn Hendricks, who says, "How many hours do you have in War Thunder?" So both of them, I mean, I started, as I said, 3 years, 11 months ago. So basically nearly 4 years now. And I actually went to the effort of working out how long I've actually played this game in hours. Because I used the launcher version before I used the Steam version, and the Steam version says I have 2,388 hours in the Steam version, and maybe add another year on top of that when I use the launcher. Yeah, about a year, so probably around 3,000 hours, to be quite honest. That brings me back to the days when I actually used my old laptop, which I have next to me, but it's pretty much burnt out at this point. The heating system, or not the heating, but the cooling system is pretty much destroyed. Everything's fried, but it still works, and it's good for watching YouTube while I'm doing stuff. But anyway, I'd probably say about 3,000 hours. If we're talking about actually in battles, once again, you can look at the stats on the War Thunder website. If you just search players and then boom boom tune, it'll come up with all of my stats and how long I've been actually in game. So in realistic battles overall, I've been in game for 1.3 months, which is absolutely startling. In fighter battle time, 25 days. Really ridiculous. And I went to the effort of adding everything up, and so total time in actual battles, 68 days, which is a rough estimate, but that's, you know, as close as you're going to get. So on average, or at an estimate, sorry, 68 days in battle, which means, you know, in either arcade, simulator, or realistic battles. So there you go. Hopefully that answers both your questions with some relative decency. I'll just close some of this so it's not all over the place. This is much more of a relaxed thing. I think the Q&A should be a much more relaxed experience. This is from Gazlink1. "Hey, European Canadian, and presumably British by the accent, are you? If I guess Stoke, am I near where the accent is from?" I am British, and I suppose, yeah. I'm not from the south of Britain, I'm actually from Yorkshire, which, when I actually came over to Canada, it was quite hard for a lot of people to understand me. I had quite a thick accent when it came to Yorkshire. I'm not going to talk about exactly where I'm from in Yorkshire, but let's just say my accent over the years has changed quite a lot. Through my university and through my work, I've had to do a lot of public speaking, and you know, it's in the channel description. I believe that hasn't changed since day one. I initially kind of started the channel to gain some confidence of just talking to crowds and also working on my pronunciation of certain words, and I still struggle with that, but hopefully my voice is as clear as possible. If we're talking about my actual British accent, which I used to have, it's very hard for me to recreate it now. But just imagine like a Yorkshire farmer from the not North Yorkshire, from the Yorkshire Dales, and it's very similar to that. So you can see the transformation that my accent has had in about 6 years that I've been around here. So yeah, that's around there. So I'm from Yorkshire, and yeah, I used to have a Yorkshire accent, but now it is definitely a mixture of Canadian, British, and just general more pronunciation that I've based it on.